Meatballs always intimidate me. I don't know what it is, because I know they're not that difficult, but the rolling and the whole manhandling of it, it seems like a lot of work. And so I just never make meatballs. But today, we're making meatballs. I love church cookbooks because it means that whoever submitted the recipes to these books really loved those recipes enough to share them with the world. And today we are in a book of favorite recipes which was compiled by the finance committee of the Augustana Lutheran Church in Phoenix, Arizona. I did a little bit of looking online and it doesn't appear that the Augustana Lutheran Church in Phoenix still exists. There are actually two different churches that meet in the building that was their building at this time. However, neither of those is Lutheran and neither of those is the original Augustana Lutheran Church. So sadly, it seems that this church has folded since this cookbook came out. This book is compiled in the 1970s. I don't have an exact date, but I believe it's 1978. And we are going to be making Polynesian meatballs out of this, which was submitted by Fern Kling, whoever that is. Maybe that's a relative of yours. Not sure. This recipe starts off simple enough. I have a pound of Hamburg in a bowl here, and it calls for lean ground beef. And I have 93% lean meat here. It calls for 1 small onion that is chopped or minced. It calls for half a cup of breadcrumbs that are plain, not the seasoned kind. It calls for a teaspoon of cornstarch, and it calls for a teaspoon of salt, as well as 3/4 of a cup of cream, although it says you could also use canned milk, which I found interesting. I don't even know if you can get canned milk today, can you? It's certainly not an ingredient that I have used in the past, but I've got cream here. And then it calls for a dash of some allspice. So I'm gonna put a little bit of that in there. And then we're just gonna mix this around. And as with any meatloaf or meatball or anything like that, the best method to mix these up is probably with your hands. Oh, I almost forgot to add an egg because I didn't have it out with my prepared ingredients. So I'm gonna add that in. That would have been a disaster to leave the egg out of our meatballs. Next part of the recipe is to form our meatballs into actual balls. And it says that they should be in the size of a walnut, and obviously that is a shelled walnut that they are talking about, not the small pieces that you buy undone at the store. So I am going to form these into meatballs. It doesn't say what kind of pan to put it in. However, this is going into the oven. And it says it's going to make about 3 dozen. So I'm guessing here, I've got a 9x13 pan, and hopefully that will be sufficient for what this recipe is looking for. Before we put this in the oven, we need to make a sauce that's going to go over the top of it. And that sauce only has 2 ingredients. It's a half cup of grape jelly, and it is 1 12-ounce bottle of chili sauce. The recipe says to serve this with rice and a green salad, so I did make a green salad. This is a Caesar salad, which I made using another Recipe Reviver recipe. So go check that out if the video hasn't come out yet. I'm not sure which video is gonna come first. Go check it out. This is a good recipe too. But let's check out what we're here for. This is Polynesian meatballs. These are incredibly soft. There is not much texture to them at all. It kind of just becomes this melt in your mouth, and the meat is so tender, so soft. There really, like I said, isn't much of a texture to it. It's sweet because of that grape jelly, and the chili sauce also has a sweetness from the start. And I think they were right. This is good on rice. It makes a very nice little meal. You could make this, even though it takes an hour in the oven, the actual prep time was not as bad as I thought, especially given that I had this predisposition that meatballs were an incredibly difficult thing to do. These were not difficult. They were pretty darn easy. And the ingredients are, for the most part, things you probably already have in your pantry at home. So give these a try. Definitely worth a try. And I'm gonna finish my lunch. See you next time on Recipe Reviver.